I'm a 33-year-old single father to my daughter Lila. She just turned 7, and like any kid her age, birthdays are a huge deal. For the past few years, I've kept things simple, small gatherings, fun activities, and making sure she has a great day. But this year, my family insisted on throwing a big celebration for her at my parents' house. They promised to handle everything, saying there was going to be a huge surprise that would make the day extra special. At first, I wasn't too keen on the idea. My family can be overbearing, and they tend to take over situations. But Lila was excited. She's always loved spending time with her grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Seeing how much she wanted it, I gave in. I figured, what's the harm in letting them do something nice for her? As the party date got closer, I started noticing some strange behavior. My parents and siblings were acting off. Whenever I asked about the details, they were weirdly vague. If I walked into a room, conversations would suddenly stop. My mother kept giving me these knowing smiles, constantly saying, "You'll love the surprise." My sister, who usually had no problem gossiping about family drama, was unusually tight-lipped. Even my dad, who was usually neutral in everything, told me I just needed to trust them this time. Something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The day of the party arrived, and I pushed my worries aside. The house was decorated, the food was great, and the kids were running around having fun. Everything seemed normal at first. Lila was playing with her cousins, completely in her element. My mother was beaming, my siblings were acting overly cheerful, and my extended relatives were all present, chatting away. Then it happened. I was standing by the snack table, keeping an eye on Lila, when the front door opened. A few people turned their heads, and then my mother's face lit up like she had just seen a long-lost friend, because she had. Rachel walked in. I hadn't seen her in nearly 8 years. Not since she left before Lila was born and never looked back. No calls, no letters, no visits. She had completely disappeared from our lives. And yet there she was, standing in my parents' house, smiling like she belonged there. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. The last time I had heard anything about Rachel was when she made it clear she wanted nothing to do with me or our daughter. She had no interest in being a mother, and I had accepted that. I had built a life for Lila without her. And now, out of nowhere she was here. But the worst part wasn't Rachel showing up. It was my family's reaction. They weren't surprised. They weren't awkward. They weren't even acting like this was a big deal. Instead, they welcomed her like she had always been part of our lives. My mother hugged her. My sister pulled her into conversation, and my brother patted her on the back like she was an old friend. And then, before I could say anything, Lila, confused, looked up at me and asked, "Who is that?" Before I could even think of an answer, my mother spoke up, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "She's your mommy, sweetheart." The entire room went silent. Lila just stood there, staring at Rachel, not understanding what was happening, and in that moment, I felt something snap inside me. I pulled my parents aside immediately. The second we were out of earshot, I demanded to know what the hell was going on. They tried to brush it off at first, acting like it was just a wonderful surprise for Lila. But I wasn't buying it. I kept pushing until the truth finally came out. Rachel had reappeared months ago, slowly regaining my parents' trust. It started with sporadic calls, then occasional visits they deliberately kept secret from me. Planning this, keeping it from me. And their reason, she deserves a second chance, my mother said. Lila needs both parents. I could barely process what I was hearing. Rachel had never once reached out to me, never tried to be in Lila's life. She had abandoned her. And now, just because she had a sudden change of heart, they expected me to welcome her back with open arms. To let her waltz in and play mommy like the past 7 years hadn't happened. I turned to Rachel. She looked teary-eyed, like she was expecting me to break down and forgive her on the spot. She started saying something about regret, about wanting to be there for Lila now, about making things right. I didn't believe a word of it. Before I could say anything, my brother, who had been standing nearby, let something slip. They had planned this entire party as a setup, not just to surprise Lila, but to corner me, to force Rachel back into our lives. I looked at Lila. She was standing a few feet away, her little hands clenched into fists, her lower lip trembling. She wasn't excited. She wasn't happy. She was overwhelmed, confused, and scared. I had seen enough. I turned back to my family, my voice shaking with anger. "You did all of this behind my back. You kept secrets from me. You planned this whole thing just to force Rachel on Lila." My mother's face twisted with frustration. "We knew you'd never let her in. You don't get to make that choice alone." That was it. I took Lila's hand, turned around and walked straight out of that house. I didn't care about the cake, the presents, or the decorations. I didn't care about the shocked whispers, or the desperate voices calling my name. I wasn't going to let them ambush me like this. As I buckled Lila into the car, she finally spoke, her voice small and shaky. "Are we going home?" I looked at her in the rearview mirror and gave her the only answer that mattered. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going home." And with that I drove away, leaving my family and their betrayal behind. Update 1. I didn't answer my phone that night. Not once. The second I walked out of my parents' house with Lila, the calls started coming in, first my mom, then my dad, then my sister. The buzzing was non-stop, but I ignored every single one. I had bigger priorities. Lila was quiet the entire car ride home. No questions, no complaints, just staring out the window, clutching the small stuffed bunny she had gotten as a gift from one of her cousins. When we got inside, I helped her change into pajamas and tucked her into bed. She finally spoke. "Is the party over?" I nodded. "Are we in trouble?" I told her no. She hesitated. "Then why was that lady there?" I told her we'd talk about it in the morning. She didn't push. By the time she fell asleep, my phone had over 50 missed calls and countless texts. I scrolled through them, each one worse than the last. My mother's messages were all about how I had ruined everything and traumatized Lila by taking her away. My sister accused me of overreacting and said I needed to think about Lila, not my pride. My father was more direct. "You need to at least let Rachel prove she's changed. This isn't about you, this is about Lila." I put my phone on silent and went to bed. The next morning, Lila was up early, sitting at the kitchen table waiting for breakfast. She barely touched her food. After a few minutes, she finally asked, "Why did that lady say she was my mom?" I kept my answer simple. "She is your mom, but she wasn't around when you were little." Lila frowned. "Why not?" I wasn't going to lie to her, but I also wasn't going to dump the whole truth on a 7-year-old. "She left before you were born." She was quiet for a moment, then picked at her food. "Does she want to be my mom now?" I told her that I didn't know, but that no matter what, she didn't have to do anything she wasn't comfortable with. That seemed to be enough for now. The texts didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. By noon, my inbox was flooded. My mother had switched tactics. Now it was guilt-tripping about family unity and how I was being unfair to Rachel. My sister was ranting about how I was robbing Lila of a relationship she deserved. My dad kept it short and cold, telling me I was making a mistake I would regret. Then a new message. An unknown number. I already knew who it was before I opened it. Rachel must have gotten a new phone or used someone else's to bypass the block. She wrote a long message about how she never meant to hurt anyone and how she wanted to make things right. She claimed she had changed, that she missed out on so much and just wanted to be in Lila's life. She even asked if we could talk privately to figure things out. I didn't even hesitate. I shut her down immediately. She made her choice years ago. She didn't get to walk back into Lila's life just because it was convenient now. I blocked her number. That night, there was a knock at the door. I already had a bad feeling before I even looked through the peephole. It was my parents and my sister. I didn't open the door. They didn't leave. My mother started talking through the door, saying we needed to talk, that I was being unreasonable, that they had every right to be in Lila's life, and so did Rachel. I told them I wasn't discussing this. My father's voice was sharper. "You can't just shut us out. This is happening whether you like it or not." That was it. I told them that if they tried to force this, they would lose access to Lila completely. That got them quiet. Then my mother's voice, low and sharp, "We'll see about that." They finally left. The next day, a coworker pulled me aside at work. He told me I should talk to a lawyer, that even if Rachel had no legal rights now, she could try to get them back, that I needed to be prepared. I took his advice. That night, I started piecing things together. Something felt off about how my family had handled this. It wasn't just that they had sided with Rachel, it was how determined they were, like they had been planning this for a while. Then I found out the truth. My cousin reached out. He had been at the party but had stayed out of the drama. Now he wanted me to know what was really going on. My parents had been telling the extended family a completely different story. According to them, I was the one who had been keeping Rachel away all these years, that she had tried to reach out, but I had blocked her at every turn, that I had been poisoning Lila against her. That wasn't even the worst part. My brother had been secretly feeding Rachel updates about Lila, pictures, school events, details about our life. For months, maybe longer. I confronted him over text. He didn't deny it. Instead, he doubled down. "You can't keep Lila from her mom forever." That was the last thing he ever said to me. I blocked him, and then I blocked my parents. No more second chances. The final straw came later that night. A text from my mother. "We've set up a meeting with Rachel to talk things out. You need to be there." I didn't respond. I didn't go. I blocked her number too. From now on, communication with them was strictly about Lila, nothing else. I wasn't going to let them ambush me again. Update 2. The fallout came fast. Within hours of blocking my parents and brother, the real damage control began. The first sign was the sudden flood of messages from extended family, cousins, uncles, aunts, people I hadn't spoken to in years, blowing up my phone. I ignored most of them, but the ones I did skim all followed the same script. "How could you do this to your mother? Rachel deserves a second chance. Lila needs BOT parents." My mother had wasted no time spinning her own version of events. In her version, I was the villain, the bitter, controlling father who had shut out a loving mother trying to reunite with her daughter. I checked the family group chat, which I usually ignored. My name was everywhere. My mother was ranting about how I was putting my pride over Lila's happiness, and my brother was backing her up, calling me selfish. A few relatives sided with me, pointing out that Rachel had never been around before, but they were drowned out by the guilt tripping. I left the chat without saying a word. The next morning, my cousin sent me a link. Rachel had made a public Facebook post, spinning the situation to make it seem like I had deliberately alienated her. But not everyone was convinced. Some people began commenting, asking why she had never reached out in 7 years. She talked about how she had been pushed away and how she had cried herself to sleep every night, missing her daughter. The comments were filled with sympathy. "Stay strong, mama. You deserve to be in her life. This is heartbreaking." A few people asked why she had been gone for so long. Rachel ignored those comments. I didn't bother responding. Let her have her sob story. But that wasn't the worst part. A few days later, I got a call from Lila's school. One of her teachers wanted to check in about something concerning. My parents and Rachel had shown up at the school. They had asked to see Lila. The school thankfully followed protocol. Since I was listed as the sole guardian, they refused to let her go with them. They didn't make a scene, but they had lingered long enough that the teacher had found it unsettling. I went to the school immediately. I updated the records, making it explicitly clear no one under any circumstances was allowed to pick up or visit Lila except me. I made sure security knew Rachel's face. Then I called my lawyer. The legal situation was clear. Rachel had no parental rights. She had abandoned Lila at birth and never attempted to establish custody. That was in my favor. But my lawyer warned me that if Rachel pushed, she could try to file for visitation. Depending on the judge, she might be granted supervised visits, especially if she framed it as wanting to reconnect with Lila. I had to be prepared. I started documenting everything. Every message, every incident, every time someone tried to pressure me. If Rachel wanted to fight, I wasn't going to make it easy for her. Then I got an email. It was from Rachel. She was willing to go to court if that's what it took. The next attempt came from my father. Unlike my mother, he usually stayed neutral in family drama. But now he was reaching out. He wanted me to just hear Rachel out. He insisted that this wasn't about me. It was about Lila, that I was being unfair, that people change. I shut that down immediately. Rachel wasn't some struggling mother who had been forced away. She had walked away. She had never once reached out. She had left me to raise Lila alone, and now that she suddenly wanted back in, she expected me to just hand over access. I made it clear. There was nothing to discuss. My mother didn't take that well. The next day, I got another text, an ultimatum. Either I let Rachel see Lila, or my parents were cutting ties with me. I told them they had already made their choice when they betrayed me. If they wanted to side with Rachel, that was on them. I blocked their numbers. Then came the worst part. Rachel filed paperwork. She was officially trying to establish her rights. For a split second, I panicked. Then I called my lawyer. He reassured me that she had no case. She had abandoned Lila for years. She had never paid child support. No judge was going to hand her custody overnight. Then he found something else. Court records. Rachel had another child. A child she had also abandoned. Years ago, before Lila was even born, Rachel had lost parental rights to her first kid. She had done this before. I sat back, staring at the screen. This wasn't about Rachel suddenly wanting to be a mother. This was about control. Rachel had walked away from Lila's life without a second thought. Now she was back because it suited her. And my family. They had chosen her over me. They were willing to ambush me, manipulate me, and lie to me, all for someone who had already proven she wasn't capable of being a parent. This wasn't just about keeping Rachel away. This was about protecting Lila from a woman who only wanted to be a mother when it was convenient. The fight wasn't over. I was ready for whatever came next. Update 3. The legal battle had officially started. My lawyer confirmed that Rachel had formally filed for joint custody of Lila. Despite being absent for her entire life, she was now claiming that I had kept Lila from her, and that she had been trying to reconnect, but was met with hostility. Her argument was weak, but it was enough to drag this into court. My lawyer immediately filed a response, laying everything out: Rachel's abandonment, her complete lack of financial support, and the fact that she had never once made a legal attempt to be involved until now. He also brought up the court records proving she had lost parental rights to another child in the past. But then, the real betrayal came. Rachel had support from my own family. My lawyer showed me the documents. My mother and my brother had both submitted statements in court, claiming that I had unfairly kept Rachel away. They painted me as the unreasonable one, saying that Rachel had been desperate to reconnect, but I had refused to let her see Lila. I could barely process it. My own family had sided with the woman who abandoned my daughter. The worst part was Lila. She had started having nightmares, waking up crying, asking if someone was going to take her away. I reassured her every night that no one was taking her anywhere. but it was clear how much this was affecting her. Then Rachel pulled her next stunt. A parenting blog ran an article about her. It was an interview, a long emotional piece, where Rachel talked about fighting for her daughter. She painted herself as a mother who had made mistakes, but was now being kept away by a bitter ex. The harassment started almost immediately. People who had no idea what was actually happening flooded my business page, calling me a monster. I got emails from strangers, accusing me of ruining a mother's chance to be with her child. I ignored them. I didn't respond. Instead, I took legal precautions. My lawyer advised me to file for a restraining order, especially after Rachel had already shown up at Lila's school unannounced. The process was started immediately. I also went to the school and made sure Rachel, my parents, and my brother were completely removed from any contact lists. If they showed up again, security would be called. Then, my mother pushed things even further. One evening, there was knocking at my door. I checked the peephole. It was her. And Rachel. I didn't open it. They knocked again. Harder this time. My mother called through the door, saying we needed to talk things out like adults. Rachel added something about how this wasn't good for Lila. I told them to leave. They didn't. I gave them one warning. I would call the police. That was enough to get them to leave, but not before my mother made one last remark. This isn't over. Then an email from my father. Even though I had blocked their numbers, I hadn't anticipated them reaching me this way. If you keep doing this, you are no longer our son. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I already knew the truth. I never had a family to begin with. Update 4. The first custody hearing arrived faster than I expected. Rachel was there, dressed carefully to look like the devoted mother she was pretending to be. She sat with her lawyer, glancing at me every few minutes. But I didn't acknowledge her. When the proceedings began, Rachel's lawyer started with the same tired narrative. She was a mother who had been shut out of her daughter's life by my controlling behavior. She had tried to reconnect but was met with hostility. She claimed she only wanted a chance to be in Lila's life, but I was unfairly keeping her away. Then my lawyer spoke. He wasted no time. He presented court records proving Rachel had another child, one she had abandoned before Lila was even born. The records showed that she had completely lost parental rights to that child due to neglect and failure to provide any support. The courtroom went silent. Rachel's face paled as her own past was laid out in front of the judge. Then the excuses started. She was young. She was scared. She made mistakes. But now, she was ready to be a mother. The judge remained unimpressed. Instead of making an immediate decision, they requested more evidence before ruling. Then came Lila's therapist. She testified that Lila did not feel safe around Rachel, that Lila had been experiencing emotional distress ever since Rachel had appeared in her life, that Lila was afraid she would be taken away from the only home she had ever known. Rachel's lawyer weakly attempted to argue that I had poisoned Lila against her mother. But then the judge did something unexpected. They asked for a child advocate to speak for Lila. When Lila was brought in, she looked around nervously. The judge spoke to her gently, asking if she wanted to say anything. Lila's voice was quiet but firm. She said Rachel was a stranger. She didn't know her, and she didn't want to go with her. The courtroom was completely silent. Rachel became visibly agitated. She jumped to her feet, pointing at me, screaming that I had brainwashed Lila, that I was ruining her life. Security was called, and before she could say anything else, she was removed from the courtroom. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Later that evening, I received an unexpected email. Rachel's estranged parents. They had seen what happened in court and wanted me to know they supported me. They admitted Rachel had always been reckless, that she only ever wanted things when she was told she couldn't have them. They had cut contact with her years ago, but had no idea she was trying to pull this with Lila. Then, another surprise. Rachel's ex, the father of her other child, reached out. He had heard about the custody case and offered to testify against her. He told me Rachel had done the exact same thing to his child, abandoning them, only to show up years later acting like she wanted to be a parent again. He said his child had suffered from the mental distress of her sudden return and that he wouldn't let another kid go through that. His statement would destroy whatever was left of Rachel's case. Then my mother tried to crawl back in. Out of nowhere, she sent a message. She wanted to make peace, to talk. I blocked her. There was no peace to be made. Rachel must have realized she was losing, because the next day she called from an unknown number. She begged to meet privately, to settle things outside of court. I didn't even entertain it. The only place we would talk was in front of a judge. Update 5. Rachel wasn't done yet. Despite the evidence against her, despite Lila's clear wishes, despite being exposed for abandoning another child, she made one final desperate move. She filed an emergency motion for temporary visitation rights before the final custody ruling. Her argument, that she deserved a chance to bond with Lila before the judge made a decision, that keeping her away was causing emotional harm. It didn't work. The judge denied it immediately. Rachel's history was too unstable. Her past abandonment, the distress Lila was already experiencing, and the outburst in court made it clear there was no reason to grant her visitation. Rachel had lost another battle. That's when my mother and brother lost it. Their messages came in waves, furious, hateful. My mother accused me of destroying Rachel's life just to be spiteful. My brother called me vindictive and told me I was going to ruin Lila by keeping her away from her mother. I ignored them. I had nothing to say. Then Rachel made a wild claim. She was pregnant and strongly implied it was mine. My lawyer immediately advised me to request a legal affidavit demanding a paternity test. But it was clear to everyone that the timeline didn't add up. She didn't just claim it, she implied that I was the father. It started as a vague post online. Something about how she was starting over and preparing for a new blessing. Then messages started spreading. My cousin sent me a screenshot from one of Rachel's friends saying that I was about to be a father again. It was a complete lie. I hadn't been with Rachel in nearly 8 years. It didn't take long for the truth to come out. Rachel's ex, the father of her other child, exposed her immediately. He revealed that Rachel had been seeing another man recently, someone she had been with just a few months ago. He outright stated that Rachel was trying to use this fake pregnancy to gain sympathy in court. The backlash was brutal. People started calling Rachel out. The same people who had been defending her before turned against her. Her social media was flooded with questions she couldn't answer. She deleted everything. Her entire online presence vanished overnight, but the damage was already done. The judge set another hearing for a few months later, allowing time for further evaluation and investigation before making a final decision. I felt like the end was in sight. Then my mother made her last, desperate attempt. She showed up at my house. I didn't answer the door at first, but she wouldn't leave. I finally stepped outside and there she was, crying, pleading with me to just give Rachel one more chance, saying that Rachel had messed up but still deserved to be a mother, that we could fix this. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just looked at her and said, "She's done, and so are you." Then I went inside and locked the door. That was the last time I ever saw her. After that, I changed my number. I cut off every single family member who had sided with Rachel. There was no way for them to contact me anymore. As the final court date got closer, Rachel completely spiraled. One evening, she showed up outside my workplace. She stood there screaming, crying, making a scene. Security had to be called to remove her. Then, just a few days later, she made one last attempt to see Lila. She showed up at Lila's school again. The school called me immediately. I contacted my lawyer, and we filed a formal harassment complaint against her. That, on top of the existing evidence, only made her case weaker. Then, one final message. Rachel emailed me. "You will regret this. Lila will hate you one day." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The final battle was coming. I was ready to end this nightmare for good. Update 6. The final court hearing had arrived. I walked into the courthouse ready to put an end to this once and for all. Rachel was already there, sitting with her lawyer. She looked disheveled, her clothes slightly wrinkled, her makeup uneven, her leg bouncing anxiously. She wasn't the polished, put-together version of herself she had tried to present at the beginning of this mess. When the judge entered and the hearing officially began, Rachel's lawyer went straight for the last defense they had left: parental alienation. He argued that I had manipulated Lila against her mother, turning her against Rachel and denying her a chance at a relationship. He claimed that I had refused every attempt at communication, making it impossible for Rachel to be involved. Then my lawyer stood up. He didn't waste time. He laid out every piece of evidence we had, every missed year, every absence, every failure on Rachel's part. She had never made any legal attempts to contact Lila before this custody battle. She had never paid a single cent in child support. She had never even sent a card, a letter, or a birthday gift. There was no proof that she had ever tried to be a mother to Lila. Then Rachel's ex was called to testify. He told the court what Rachel had done to their child. He described how she had disappeared, how she had abandoned them completely, and how she had only come back years later, expecting to reclaim a child she had neglected. He explained how his child had suffered because of Rachel's reckless behavior. There was no way to deny it now. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern. Then Lila's therapist spoke. She confirmed what I already knew. Lila was emotionally distressed by Rachel's sudden presence in her life. She had nightmares about being taken away. She felt unsafe. Rachel, with teary eyes, insisted she had changed. But when the judge pressed her on why she had never once paid child support or even sent a birthday card, she had no real answer. The judge remained unimpressed. Instead, they gave her a final warning. They acknowledged that while people could change, Rachel had shown a clear history of neglect and irresponsibility. They reminded her that parenting was a responsibility, not a right. If she ever wanted to refile for custody in the future, she would have to prove that she was stable and capable of being a mother. Then my mother and brother made their last attempt. They tried to speak on Rachel's behalf. The judge didn't even entertain it. I was Lila's sole legal parent. Their opinions didn't matter. The ruling was given. The judge issued a temporary ruling denying visitation until a full custody evaluation was completed. My lawyer assured me that given Rachel's history, it was unlikely she would gain any significant parental rights. It was over. Rachel lost it. She stood up, pointing at me, screaming about how I had stolen her baby, how I had ruined her life. Security was called in, and she was escorted out of the courtroom while still yelling accusations. The judge didn't react. They simply moved on, closing the case. It was done. Later that night, I received one final message from my mother. She called me a heartless monster for taking Lila away from her mother. I blocked her number. Then I blocked my father. Then my brother. There was no way for them to reach me again. When I got home, Lila was waiting. She ran into my arms the second I walked through the door. I held her close and told her the only thing that mattered. You're safe. You'll always be safe. Update 7. Rachel stopped contacting me directly, but I heard from a mutual acquaintance that she was still attempting to appeal her case. She was running out of options, but wasn't entirely gone just yet. After the final court ruling, she completely vanished. No more outbursts, no more desperate attempts to see Lila, no more dramatic public scenes. It was like she had given up entirely. Weeks passed, and for the first time in a long time, life felt normal again. Lila was happier. She laughed more, slept peacefully, and didn't ask about Rachel. With the legal battle behind us, I focused on being her dad without the constant weight of uncertainty hanging over us. Then a friend reached out. Rachel was back online, at least. She had started a GoFundMe. The fundraiser's description was pure fiction. She claimed she had been robbed of her child, that the legal system had failed a loving mother, and that I had abused my power to keep Lila from her. She begged for financial help, saying she needed funds to appeal the court's unjust decision and rebuild her life after everything was taken from her. People believed her. The comments were filled with sympathy. Strangers offered to donate, calling the situation heartbreaking. A few even found my business page and sent hateful messages, calling me a monster for stealing Lila from her mother. Then the lies caught up to her. A commenter called her out, posting screenshots from the custody case. They exposed her fake pregnancy stunt, her history of abandonment, and her failed attempt to manipulate the court. More people started asking questions. Her supporters turned against her, demanding answers. Rachel tried deleting the negative comments, but it was too late. The backlash was swift. She deleted the fundraiser. Then she wiped her social media completely. For the second time, she vanished. But then something worse happened. A neighbor spotted her lurking near my house. They saw her late at night, standing on the sidewalk, just watching. She wasn't alone. She was with some guy. Someone I didn't recognize. They stayed for a few minutes, then walked away. I didn't wait for something worse to happen. I contacted the authorities and filed for a restraining order, using the previous harassment incidents as evidence. The judge granted it immediately. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email from my father. He begged me to forgive Rachel. He wrote about how she had lost everything and how she just needed help. That maybe if I let her see Lila, she would finally move on. I ignored it. My family had made their choice. There was no coming back from this. Then I heard the last piece of news I ever expected. Rachel was broke. She had burned every bridge she had left. The people who once defended her had turned their backs. No one was willing to support her anymore. Then another surprise. Her own mother contacted me. She apologized for Rachel's behavior, said she had always been this way, reckless, selfish, only caring when it was convenient for her. She admitted that Rachel never deserved custody of Lila, and that I had done the right thing by keeping her away. That should have been the end of it. Then news broke that Rachel had been arrested for fraud. According to court records, she had been running a financial scam, attempting to collect money from people under false pretenses. Though it had nothing to do with me directly, my lawyer assured me it would destroy any chance she had of reopening the custody case. She had officially hit rock bottom. For the first time in a long time, I felt like it was over. Rachel was out of our lives for good. Lila and I could finally breathe. Update 8. 6 months later, everything was different. Lila was thriving. She was excelling in school, making new friends, and laughing more than ever. The fear that had once lingered in her eyes was gone. She slept peacefully, no longer waking up from nightmares. For the first time in years, our home felt safe. Rachel never appealed the custody ruling. My lawyer confirmed that after her arrest, she had completely disappeared from the legal system. No new filings, no request for visitation, nothing. She had given up. My family remained cut off. I hadn't heard from my parents or my brother since I blocked them, and I had no intention of reconnecting. They had made their choice when they sided with Rachel. Then a letter arrived. It was from my mother. She begged for forgiveness, said she missed Lila, missed me, and wanted to make things right. I didn't read the rest. I tore it up and threw it away. One night, Lila surprised me with a request. She sat at the dinner table, playing with her fork, then looked up and asked, "Can I have your last name?" I didn't hesitate. The legal process started the next morning. We built new traditions. Instead of the forced family gatherings at my parents' house, Lila and I started choosing our own special celebrations. We planned small vacations, day trips, and activities we both enjoyed. When her next birthday came around, it was the first real party she'd ever had. No hidden agendas, no surprises, just people who truly loved her. That was the moment I realized something important. Family wasn't about blood, it was about who stood by you when it mattered. A few weeks later, Lila asked me a simple question. Are we ever going to see Grandma again? I told her it was up to her. She thought about it for a second, then shook her head. No, that was her answer. That was enough. Then an old friend reached out. They told me my family was struggling without me, that my parents were miserable, that my brother was lost without their approval, that they had burned too many bridges. I didn't feel bad. They had made their choice. Then one last letter came, this time from Rachel. I didn't open it. I threw it away. The past had no place in my life anymore. I had a daughter to raise, a life to live, a future to build. The nightmare was over, and for the first time in a long time, I finally felt free.